Okay then, councillors, we are now broadcasting live on YouTube, and I'll call the meeting to order. Agenda item 1 is my introduction, and to explain that the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube via Zoom. So that's just a pre-warning to all councillors that we are being watched by members of the public, even though it might seem that it's just quite a closed group of us here this evening. And item B, the meeting protocol, as everybody is more than familiar with now in terms of using remote technology. No virtual backgrounds, please. Everybody to mute, apart from myself. So if you're not already muted, Councillor Tucker, Horsley and Pinder and Willis, if you can go on to mute, please. And then when it's your turn to speak, unmute yourselves accordingly. And C, I'm just going to carry out a roll call of councillors present. So on my screen, I've got myself, and then I've got Councillor Healy, Councillor Boynton, Councillor Jack, Councillor Hopkins, Councillor Willis, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Tucker, Councillor Horsley, Councillor Wildey, Councillor Pinder and Councillor Astel. Agenda item 2 then, to receive apologies for absence. Councillor Gow, I believe, is on his way. Is that correct, Deputy
Yes,
Clerk?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Councillor Gow will be here when he's finished work, and the system set up so he can automatically come straight in.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. To record declarations of interest by any member of the council in respect of the agenda items listed below. Members declaring interests should identify the agenda item and type of interest being declared. None declared. 3B, to note dispensations given by any member of the council in respect of the agenda items listed below. No dispensations to note. To confirm and sign the following minutes of full council. This is agenda item 4. So A, full council held on the 30th of November 2020. I move these. Councillor Hopkins to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to raise an issue. I raised this at the meeting of the full council held on the 30th. So it's under item 95.3, I think there, which was the question of the minutes of the 9th of November of policy and finance. You'll recall that I was informed at that meeting that the credit card statement represented a discussion that was had in the Policy and Finance Committee. And I've since gone back and I did communicate this to the clerk and to yourself and to the chair of Policy and Finance. And that discussion was not had at that meeting. And now I did ask for the clerk if this could be put on the agenda at this meeting, as she'd indicate to me was possible. But I think obviously raising it under the minutes here, it's just a question of, as we know, when minutes are approved by full council, they become legally binding records of what has happened at a council meeting. And I just think that in that case, I was correct in stating that we hadn't had a discussion of the credit card charges and that document hadn't been presented to us. So it wasn't accurate, but we've now accepted that because misleading information was provided to council. And I don't in any way intend to suggest that that was done willfully or maliciously. But I just think it's an important point to raise because it's a question of the accuracy of the council minutes. You know, and I don't want to be seeming like I'm nitpicking over this. I've not got any quibbles over the contents of the statement or any of the spending there. It's a question of us making sure that the information that we provide to the public about our meetings is an accurate record. So I just wanted to note that I think that 95.3 there, that discussion about the credit cards, I was correct in suggesting that you know, that we had not in any way discussed that and it shouldn't have properly been part of the minutes. And I just want care to be taken over that in the future, and that where something like that is raised, I felt on that occasion I was being dismissed over my concerns. But really what I'm seeking to achieve is for the council to have, as I say, an accurate record of what has been presented to council meetings and what has been discussed there. And I just feel that on this occasion, we haven't followed through on that. And I'd like that noted, please, Mr. Chair.
Okay, duly noted, Councillor Hopkins. Deputy Town Clerk, please.
Yeah, so members are aware, for clarity in future meetings, we've developed a page in RBS which will show all the credit card payments. So that'll be in future payments listed on in the same format as other documents, rather than having to send anything out like the copy of the credit card document. But I thought it was worth raising, so members are aware that'll be in the next pack.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just, I want to stress it's not a quibble over the accuracy of the actual information that's provided, and the fact that we'll have it in future is really welcomed, and I do welcome the clarification. I think to council at that time, it was just that I felt that it was not, and having gone back and gone over the events of that meeting of the 9th of November, it was not an accurate reflection of what had occurred, and yet now that is in our minutes. As reflecting the meeting when it did not.
Okay, yeah, as I stated before, Councillor Hopkins, that is noted and will be taken forward in the future. Thank you for raising that point. So I move the minutes of the full council held on the 30th of November. Do I have a seconder, please? Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Moving on to 4B, extraordinary full council held on the 30th of November 2020. Obviously this meeting had to be, it was resolved at the meeting that because we had multiple technical difficulties in various members trying to get on, and then per connection when people were on, that we rescheduled it to this evening. So that's all it's stated in the minutes. So I move it from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Healy, thank you. For item 5, to confirm and sign the following committee minutes. Item A, Planning, Property and Services Committee held on the 5th of January 2021. Are these people moving, or Councillor Pinder, you're not sat on that committee? Okay, Councillor Pinder.
Yeah, we've got proposers and seconders, but we need to actually vote to approve the minutes, the whole council. We've got the proposer and seconder, but we haven't actually voted to accept them.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for raising that. So all those in favour of item 4A, please show. And that's unanimous. And all those in favour of item 4B, please show. And that's unanimous. So moving on to 5A, Planning, Property and Services Committee held on the 5th of January 2021. Do I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Astel. And a seconder for that, please? Councillor Wildey. Are you wanting to speak, sorry, or are you wanting to second?
I was seconding.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wildey. All those in favour, please show. Yeah, if you're not at the meeting, you cannot vote on the minutes of that meeting. Okay. And any against? No, thank you. Those are confirmed, thank you. So item 6, Mayor's announcements and correspondence. So 6A is a mayoral event update. So as all councillors will know, you should have received an invitation for this civic event, the cabaret evening, to be held on the 29th of this month. Unfortunately, with the lockdown that was announced on Monday evening by the Prime Minister, the production company that is producing this show, Rich Tea Events. They had planned to film the show this weekend just gone. And unfortunately, that was not able to happen because of the lockdown. So we had multiple meetings in the week with myself and Rich T and Libby and also the Deputy Clerk. And we've decided that that's going to be postponed, unfortunately, but it's only going to be for 2 weeks. So don't want to dash everyone's hopes too soon. It's just going to be for 2 weeks because it's been transformed into a stay-at-home event. So all of the acts that were previously going to be filmed over the weekend, they are now going to do it all from home, which is going to be interesting, I should think. And it should be still a really fun evening, and I hope all of you can join in and take part and do some fundraising and share it on social media as well, because this is the only event that I am probably able to host this year to do any kind of fundraising, and which is a shame, but you know, it's something that you know we just all come to terms with, I think. So yeah, so I really want as many people to watch this as possible, as many people to donate as possible. It's really easy. There's a PayPal donate button, so please point people onto that. It's free to watch. It's just going to be on social media, so all you need to do is just log into Facebook. We're going to share it from our social media so people can watch it on our Facebook page, or alternatively, if you've got Twitch, you can watch it live streamed on Twitch as well. But it's going to be a really good evening. We've got some fantastic acts, hosted by the brilliant Alex Duffy of Viking FM and The Breakfast Show. So it's going to be a really stellar evening, and the acts are just brilliant, and it should be so funny and really entertaining. The last hour, the twilight hour, is going to be a little bit more adult content, so it should be interesting to see what they come up with. But yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun evening. So please, it's going to be on the Friday, the 12th of February. So add that to your calendars and your diaries, ladies and gents, and members of the public watching. Everyone is more than welcome to join in with the fun on that one. However, because of the nature of the event has changed, basically the invoice, the payment that we had agreed previously included production costs. So we've now been sent a reduced invoice noting the minus of the production costs. And the reason why it's come to full council, even though the spend of £1,500 had already been agreed, is because this is being paid up front. And normally in our payment schedule, we pay in arrears after the event. But because of the nature of the event, the booking of the acts, the payment of the acts, some of the acts want payment up front and everything like that. To make it easier, it's just being paid up front, so they can get the ball rolling with it, which they already are doing, to be fair. So it's just, this just needs approving again, so that all of the I's are dotted and all of the T's are crossed, to make sure that we're doing everything per regulations. So I propose the spend of 1,300 on the event, and I move that. So I'm just looking for a seconder just for that, please. Councillor Hopkins, and all those in favour, please show. And thank you very much, everybody. That's unanimous. So yeah, it's going to be a really good evening. So please do click in. Councillor Pinder.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this might be an appropriate point to make an observation on behalf of the Labour group, and that is that we do feel very much that you've rather drawn the short end of the stick with this year, Tom, as Mayor, and we do regret that. And we also acknowledge that you really have done a very good job of, under very difficult circumstances, of being Mayor and keeping the profile up and doing what you can. So, you know, I'd like to record our appreciation of that, even though we're not through the whole year yet. What we would like to suggest, and I know as a former Mayor that one of the more enjoyable events of being mayor is having a civic dinner. Now you haven't been able to have a civic dinner, have you? And you're not going to be able to have a civic dinner. And of course, one of the big events that is a great regret to all of us, I'm sure, is Pride, which of course was very much your baby. And I think we all, and I know the Labour group very much regrets that you weren't able to have that. So what I'd like to propose is that the Labour group would like to propose, and I'll bring the proposal, is that when we come to discuss the budget, that during Pride, let's hope we can actually do it this year, because we are intending to do it this year, aren't we? Can I make a proposal that we set some money aside in the civic budget to allow you to have, after the fact, a form of civic dinner during the Pride event? So, I mean, I'm not suggesting any figure, but I'm just proposing that we consider that and look at it under, I think civic would be the correct budget line for that when we come to discussing that under the budget.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pinder. It has been a difficult year, and it was always going to be a difficult year, but I think none of us expected it to drag on quite as long as it has done. So it is regrettable, really. But yeah, thank you for your kind words and the offer there, Councillor Hopkins.
Just to say that I'm happy to second Councillor Pinder's proposal there. Like Councillor Pinder said, we had this discussion, and we do think it would be appropriate that if we're able to go ahead with Pride, that you're able to hold a proper civic dinner at Pride, as you have as mayor missed out on so many opportunities. And we just think it's something should be taken forward to be considered as us putting within that budget, within the civic budget, something for that.
Yeah, thank you. Can I suggest that we perhaps come back to this at the budget item? I think that probably would be the most appropriate way to do it. I don't want to, jump ahead of the ship, but thank you very much for your kind words, both of you, and yeah, we look forward to times when we can all get back together again. And actually, it's strange. I must be the only mayor that's not actually chaired a physical council meeting. Well, it definitely will be. So I haven't actually chaired a meeting with all of you present, which some would say is a blessing, but I say it's a crying shame.
You're our youngest mayor and our most remote.
quite, yeah. But Councillor Horsley, you're wanting to, your hand is raised.
Can I point out that the funds from this mayoral event, belated mayoral event, any profits should be credited belatedly to your mayoral charities?
Yeah, that is a very valid point, and that would be hugely appreciated, because it's been a bad year for me, but it's been even worse year for the charities, because normally they would have had stacks of cash, and the pot is currently at 0 until we've done this. So it's a real crying shame, but hopefully we can get something done with it. That'd be brilliant. Which does move me on to 6B, which Mayor's Annual Awards. When I came into office, or when I was deputy mayor anyway, and I was thinking about, well, I'm going to be mayor next year, I want to do something. And I had lots of things, as everybody knows, that I wanted to do, to bring in, such as Pride, other things about reinvigorating the civic nature of the mayoralty, having the mace on the table again, having the chains worn at the council meetings, etc. But one of the things that I was conscious of, and it actually, it came up at Duncan's mayor making actually, was the awards. It's the mayor making is a special evening for the incoming mayor. Family are there, but it's also a special evening for the recipients of awards, the Good Neighbour Award and also the Young Person Award. And at that mayor making, there was, if you remember back, it was our first meeting, all of us together, and the room was packed. In actual fact, it was probably a fire hazard, and we probably breached capacity, or nearly breached capacity there, in the Guildhall. And I floated the idea back all that time ago, when when it was my turn to be mayor. I wanted to separate the mayor making ceremony, which it is a bit mundane, it's part of it, but it's also a special evening for the incoming mayor and their family and friends, to separate the mayor making from the awards giving, and to have a kind of celebration evening for the outgoing mayor on a separate evening, and to have a celebration evening of their year in office at the very end of it, probably a week before mayor making, and to have an awards evening, but not just for a good neighbour and a young person, but to add in a whole host of other awards, and to make it a bit like Beverley's version of the Oscars, in terms of it being glitz, glam, and a big night of celebration of all things Beverley: business awards, tourism awards, hospitality awards, community champion awards, and to really invigorate it and to create more awards. But of course, the Good Neighbour and the Young Person Award would be the pinnacle of all awards, and it would be the equivalent to a BAFTA Fellowship Award. So I'm wanting to float that idea to elected members this evening, and I'm proposing, because what the reason why I brought it to full council is because I could just do, we could just do this, and it could just be something that happens this year virtually. But what I'm wanting is, I'm wanting full council approval for this event to be an annual civic event, similar to that of a civic dinner and a civic service and the mayor making, one of the cornerstones of a civic year. And to make it that we as a council want this to happen every year, not virtually, hopefully in 2022, but virtually certainly this year, and then in subsequent years. Now, I've already started the planning works for this year, because it's something that I can do this year, but I'm wanting to put in a legacy of this being happening in future years. We've already secured a local Beverley celebrity, Ben Shires, to be the host of the evening. He's more than thrilled to do that, and he is truly a celebrity. This is a celeb host, and it is an honour to have Ben to do it. And also, I've approached Rich T for their speciality in hosting digital events to come up with a quote to produce this evening. So, but my proposal is that, and are we all focused on the meeting? It is noted that Councillor Willis seems not to be, but I do propose that this becomes an annual civic event, and going forward, this is held annually every year. So yes, that's something that I've just proposed. I don't know if I've got a seconder for that, if we've got any comments to make on that. Councillor Hopkins.
I think that sounds excellent. We were supportive of that idea that you had before. I think it'd be really good, and I hope something can come together, because also the town needs some things to celebrate. It's been a really tough year, so it'd be good to have this opportunity. So I'd absolutely be happy to second your proposal there, and I think it's excellent to still be trying to go ahead with it, and such a legacy would be very welcome for the town, I think. Thank
you, Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Pinder?
Yeah, very much so. I echo very much what Councillor Hopkins said. If you remember, we actually mentioned this in an early meeting, that we'd be good to have an opportunity to actually recognise and celebrate some of the people in the town who've done such great work under COVID for the community. So like Chloe, I very much welcome your suggestion. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Councillor Pinder. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I think it's a great idea because it can really bring the people of Beverley together. Great idea getting Ben. He's such a consummate performer and he'll be absolutely brilliant. And I think it's something that would be excellent to go into the annual town events. A bit of Raz, a bit of Mataz. That sounds fantastic. Thanks for the suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Gow.
My apologies for being late. I'm afraid I was helping a disabled lady in a wheelchair, so doing my bit for the community.
Not a problem at all. Thank you for logging on regardless, Councillor Gow. You know, nice to see you here. So yeah, just to bring you up to speed, Councillor Gow just proposed the annual awards evening, glitz and glam, Oscars type thing for Beverley. So yes, can I just say, Councillor Willis, if you do need to have a phone conversation in the future, please can you turn your video off? It is most off-putting. Yes. Okay. You know,
I was thinking at least it's something that I should have done today and I forgot to do. But I thought I was muted anyway.
You were muted. It's just we could all see you on the phone. That's all. So yes, just yeah, we just need to treat it like a proper council meeting, even though it is virtual. And of course, if we was taking a phone conversation in the actual council chamber, we would have left the room. So if you just turn your video off, that's great. But moving on.
Apologies.
I remind you, Mr. Mayor, that you've got your little hand up, wanting to speak.
Sorry?
You've got a little hand up indicating that you want to speak.
Do I? Oh, thank you for that, Councillor Aston. Don't know how I take it off. But anyway, I will move it to the vote then. So all those in favour of creating this annual civic event, please show. Excellent. Unanimous. Lovely. So as I said, I'll bring more concrete proposals for this year's event to the next full council. Thank you, everybody. Item 7, reports from councillors serving on external bodies, if there are any. Which there appears to be none. Lovely. Item 8, comments made at full council on the 19th of October 2020 to consider issues relating to comments made at full council on the 19th of October by Councillor Pinder. And 8A, a statement from Councillor Pinder. Councillor Pinder to make a statement regarding agenda item 15 of the meeting. Councillor Pinder, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to make the following statement to full council. In the council's Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 19th of October last year, under agenda item 15, I made comments that went to the competence and professional standing of the former internal auditor of public sector audit. I've since become aware that those statements were inaccurate and I withdraw them unequivocally. Accordingly, I apologise to Public Sector Order for those erroneous statements and wish the record to show that my comments in no way reflect the views of my fellow councillors or Beverley Town Council as a body. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pinder. And that is noted. However,
Mr. Chair, could I just ask if Councillor Pinder could email that to me so I've got it verbatim, the exact wording for the minutes, if that's all right?
Of course. Is that okay, Councillor Pinder?
I had it ready and I've just done so.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Councillor Pinder. However, item B, this is a written motion submitted before the full council meeting. And so therefore it is, you know, we do need to move on this with this motion. So I hand over to Councillor Jack for the motion on 8B.
Well, Margaret, that's rather, when I say take the winds out of my sails, I've got a prepared sort of thing here, because I didn't think with, excuse me a second. Yeah, I didn't think we would hear that apology, and I think it sounded as a rather a complete apology, which is something I wish you'd done a bit earlier at the request of the mayor. But I'm pleased that it is now being made. I think I would still like to move that I would like to move the first motion where certainly where we show our support for Mr. Dixon and Public Service Audit, who I believe have done a good job for us. And yeah, it is important that we show that, and I'm very sorry that we've lost them. And so, yeah, I would like to continue. Well, I suppose it wants editing a bit. Yeah, it's rather scuppered. It wants a rewording, I think, of that motion, but I would still like to propose a motion showing our support for Public Service Audit and Mr. Dixon, who I believe have done an outstanding job for us while they were doing it, and our regret that he felt he had to resign his role there. Is that?
Sorry, I muted myself. Thank you, Councillor Jack. There's a hand raised. Councillor Healy first, please.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome those comments from Councillor Pinder. Nevertheless, I think it is important to make a position clear on this. I was really sad, actually, to find this item on the agenda. I'm quite disappointed. We're nearly 2 years into this council, and during that time, I've always believed in collaboration with councillors of different groups working together as one, because I believe that at the heart of it, that's what we are and what we want to do. But I've often felt that this collaborative approach has been made difficult on occasions by some members of the council. And at various times, I've felt that mutual cooperation has been strained somewhat. And the fairly consistent and disparaging of the internal auditor. And it wasn't just about comments that were made on the 19th of October. But we have had consistently unreasonable questioning of the council's internal auditor by some members over that period since May 2019. I do believe that Mr. Richard Dixon has been serving this council as its independent auditor for 3 years. He stepped in when our long-standing auditor became ill. He has a high reputation as an internal auditor of parish councils in this area. He also audits Earnlicker, and his career in private practice, local government and the Audit Commission spans more than 50 years. He has an impeccable reputation, including as an auditor of parish councils with public interest reports issued against them. And we do, as a council, hold Mr. Dixon and his services in high esteem. We signed off his comprehensive AGAR report in August, and we reappointed him as our internal auditor in October. And it was great regret for me, and I think for many of us, that this council received Mr. Dixon's letter of resignation as our internal auditor on the 28th of October. Following what he certainly believed to be incorrect, unfounded and damaging allegations made by Councillor Pinder during that meeting. And clearly they hurt him. Those comments were highlighted in his letter, and they clearly had a profound effect on him. And also, as well as being untrue and hurtful, I think these comments are somewhat embarrassing, really, to the council. And the purpose of that first part of that motion was to allow the council to have the opportunity to disassociate itself completely from the sentiments expressed by Councillor Pinder. And I would add into that we welcome Councillor Pinder's apology, but I still think it's important that this council does distance itself from those sentiments which were publicly expressed and are a matter of public record, and to allow this council to express our full confidence in the internal auditor that we've now lost. We've lost him. He's not coming back. It's all very well to say sorry, which is welcome, but we have lost a competent, highly experienced audit practitioner due to what he and I think are inappropriate comments made by a councillor in a public meeting. We are in public. I know it doesn't seem like it when we're on a Zoom call, but I think it is important that this motion makes it clear that this councillor is speaking for herself. Her views did not represent the overall view of the corporate body, which does have full confidence in Mr. Dixon, and regrets the fact that those ill-chosen words have now deprived this council of its services. So I will move the motion and support the motion. The purpose of the second part of the motion was to act to get a second opinion, really. But I said before that this is about collaboration, and I really genuinely mean that. And in view of Councillor Pinder's comments, I am minded to withdraw the second part of the motion and not refer this further, because I think that we need bold gestures moving on. I really do. We're 2 years in. We sometimes say things that we regret, and Councillor Pinder has made it very clear that she regrets that. So I do want to accept that, but I do think the first part of the motion, it is important that this council does make a statement that whilst those words are regrettable and Councillor Pinder regrets them, that we do distance ourselves from them, because the problem is if we don't, it could bring the council into disrepute. So I therefore move the first part of the motion and suggest that we that we move on with that and start talking about some positive things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. I've got Councillor Willis, please.
Sorry, I was just going to say, did Duncan need to change that motion wording? But actually, when I look at it, no, that'd probably be okay. But
I think it needs to just change to reflect the comments of Margaret's apology, which could be just put in the first.
That's true. Yeah.
And then I think we move on. We don't want we genuinely want collaboration, and I welcome that. I think we're a council that works together across the political divide. We've done that. I don't want to stop doing that now, but I do think that we just put this mark in the sand, formally do that, move on, and just not take it any further at this point.
Right. Councillor Boynton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, can I just second Councillor Healy's kind of first part of that motion, and again has to move on in collaboration. Thank you.
Right. So can I just come in here as a chair point of view? We've got a motion that's proposed by Councillor Jack, and so therefore, Councillor Jack, so we've got proposal by Councillor Jack. Do I have a seconder for that motion first of all, please? I believe that would be, is it Councillor Healy, since she was wanting to move it?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it with that amendment. Yeah.
Right. So
I see Councillor Horsley's got his hand up, by the way, Chair.
I have seen that, but I'm just trying to go through this procedurally the correct way. So I'm just wanting a seconder for that. So that's seconded by Councillor Healy. Now I would just like to make an amendment.
Is that with the amendment as Councillor Healy said?
No, I'm just wanting to make the amendment, to propose an amendment, Libby, in that the first line of the motion is, whilst the first motion currently, sorry, the first line currently reads, "This council notes with concern," etc. I would like to make an amendment to that to say, whilst this council notes the statement made by Councillor Pinder, it also notes with concern and then following on with the current motion as it is. And I think that would be suffice. So I'm proposing that amendment from the chair. Do I have a seconder for that amendment, please? Councillor Healy. Right, yeah, I've got people have got hands up. I just wanted to get that procedural point in. So now we'll take other points. Councillor Horsley first, please, and then Councillor Jack.
Can I suggest that while you're quite right that adequately changes the motion, there is one person who should be informed also of the basic points made in Councillor Healy's appreciation of the situation, and that is the former auditor. And therefore, can we ask that the Deputy Town Clerk communicates those ideas to the former auditor?
Absolutely correct. Completely concur with that, Councillor Horsley, sir.
Mr. Chair, I think given previous correspondence regarding that letter, I'll prepare but work with you, Mr. Mayor, as a signatory on it, as it's from you as the chair of the council rather than an officer of the council, as it's a council decision. But if council are happy, I can work on that with the mayor.
Yes, that sounds fair enough to me. Councillor Jack.
Yeah, I've hand up actually to support your amendment, Tom. I thought it was a very sensible amendment. And yeah, having read through the motion again, I was just worried originally that there might be something that wanted withdrawing, but no, I'm quite happy with the rest of the motion to stand as is. In fact, I think it's important it stands as it is.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jack. So we need to take the vote on the amendment first, and then the amended motion, then we take another vote. So
could I just clarify, sorry, Tom, Mr. Chair, could I just clarify the seconder for your motion, for your amendment?
Councillor Healy.
Healy.
Yeah. So all those in favour of the amended motion, please. That's just keep your hands raised, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in favour. And those against, please show. And that is carried.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, that was 10 in favour, none against, no abstentions.
No, there were abstentions, but we don't need to. I don't think we need to raise hands.
So, yeah, on the vote, it was 10 for, no against.
So that'd be 3 abstentions for the record.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is carried. So there is now an amended motion. So all those in favour of the amended motion, please show. Yeah.
We've just voted on the amended motion.
No, that was the amendment to the motion.
Oh,
now,
sorry.
Now we need to vote on the amendment.
Yeah.
On the amended motion. Yes. So that's. Can we all raise your hands clearly, please? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in favour, and any against. And that's done again. So that's 3 abstentions again then. Deputy Town Clerk. Right. Okay. So moving on to 8C, which is a second motion, again proposed by Councillor Jack. Now, there's been comments on this motion already, so just seeking clarification on what's happening with this one. Councillor Jack. You need to unmute yourself, please. Unmute yourself, Councillor Jack.
Sorry. In view of Councillor Pinder's apologies, and I believe the view of reconciliation amongst us all, I will withdraw that motion.
Okay, that motion is withdrawn. So thank you, Councillor Jack. Can you lower your hand, please, Councillor Healy?
Sure, sorry.
Thank you. So moving on to item 9, which finances the budget. So the budget. To set a budget and local preset demand from East Riding of Yorkshire Council for 2021-2022 financial year. Please see attached proposed budget. Please note the deadline for the local precept demand is Friday, the 15th of January. That is this Friday. So, i.e., it needs to be decided this evening. I'm go to Councillor Johnston, please.
Thank you. You'll all have a very comprehensive pack, item 9A. Chair, thank you. I'm delighted to present this budget, which I'm confident will meet with the approval of everybody in the council, as every member of the council has specifically been invited to input into it. However, I understand it is the only budget which has been presented. This has been produced in conjunction with our officers, ensuring that comments from internal, external and consulting auditors and Joint Panel of Accountability and Governance Guidance, that's JPAG guidance, have been implemented fully. The budget recognises that last year has been one we would like to forget, in that COVID-19 has decimated many of the plans and objectives of the council, making your mayoral year, Mr. Chairman, difficult to say the least. Many of the events, including our first Pride, has already been alluded to. Community activities and infrastructure projects, which you announced back in May, have not come to fruition, meaning the council has underspent on last year's budget. We know that many people have struggled with their own finances in this last year, and it seems only fair to pass this back to Beverley residents, which is why we've been able to shave the precept by 2.11%, which, on top of the tax base drop set by East Riding of Yorkshire Council, means that the precept this year has dropped by a whole 4.29%. That's a £2 and a penny saving for a Band D property. I think we should be proud of the fact that prudent use of our funds has enabled us to make this reduction, which may be small, but at least it shows that we are trying to help the people who need it most. But that doesn't mean to say that by dropping the precept, we're not ambitious for next year. What we do plan to do, though, is invest in the natural environment for all areas of Beverley, not just the town centre. COVID tiers and lockdowns have forced people to stay closer to home, which is why we intend to increase year-round planting, along with more seating to enjoy the plants and pass the time of day when able. We want to expand Christmas lighting and invest in permanent lighting for highlights of Beverley Trail, which will include our estates. In fact, we have a major community project planned for Swinemore Estate, which will include input from some of our young people and adults living with special educational needs and disabilities. This project will include a key educational element with interpretary boards and pieces of art to explain why the Swinemore Estate exists. We're also investing in more CCTV cameras, as the ones we have installed have increased the safety of the areas currently covered. Keeping residents and visitors, when they're allowed back, safe has to be a priority. There is, of course, earmarked sums for events for when we are allowed to socialise again. Beverley is known as a town of festivals, and the big plans for a year-long Festival of Beverley to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Beverley's founder, St John of Beverley, on May the 7th, 1300 years ago, have so far been scuppered. But Beverley is resilient, and I can assure you we will enjoy music, arts, food and Christmas festivals again as soon as we can. The Town Council has also earmarked money for grants for residents and others who wish to improve the lot of the people of Beverley with their own projects, whether cultural, educational, sporting, or to improve the well-being of Beverley townsfolk. Small community grants are now available for start-up projects which might not have a track record, as well as general grants for more established organisations. Excitingly, the Council is also keen to support ongoing projects by developing strategic partnerships with such organisations to the benefit of both parties. Watch out for an announcement very soon. Beverley is one of the few towns in the country which does not have its own premises. Last year, the council earmarked £350,000, so money was available should a suitable building become available. We have looked closely as a town council at 2 buildings so far. The old St Nicholas School, which would have put the council into considerable debt to make it habitable, something the Liberal Democrat group was not willing to do, and the post office, which was also considered unsuitable. But we know of 3 buildings at least that are about to come into the market, and we are collectively crossing our fingers that one of them will make Beverley a fine office. So that £350,000 continues to be set aside. Something which Beverley does have and is very proud of is its allotments. There's a waiting list for allotments, which would indicate that the number of people who enjoy growing their own and being out in the fresh air is increasing. As of this year, the allotments will be self-supporting, meaning Beverley residents will not be precepted for allotment upkeep. This was a recommendation of our consulting auditors, Audit Yorkshire, which we are pleased to implement. The council is very keen that we put Beverley on the map with signs at all entry points to the town. Beverley borders on Molescroft and Woodmansea, yet many would not know exactly where Beverley starts and stops. So new signs, complete with planters, will celebrate this ancient town with its rich history. The signs will include Beverley's newly acquired membership of the Modern Hansa League, which recognises its important place as a port which traded as a member of the medieval Hanseatic League, as well as acknowledge its twin towns of Lemgo in Germany and Nogent-sur-Oise in France. Finally, this budget ensures our officers are rewarded appropriately for their massive contribution to the efficient way in which the business of the town is carried out. They all do far more than their working hours, and for this councillors are most grateful, as the town should be. They've embraced the necessary changes to working practice under COVID with stoicism, getting on with a job, using remote technology, and working from their own homes on laptops. The Zoom account has been worth every penny. Additionally, they're getting to grips with a new finance system, which was installed just as we went into lockdown 1. This budget has been created alongside our award-winning town clerk, to whom we send our best wishes for a speedy recovery, as she's currently suffering from COVID. The deputy town clerk, who has stepped up to do her and his own job at the same time, and our 2 admin assistants, who have definitely gone the extra metaphorical mile. I personally thank you for your knowledge and patience in getting these figures right and compliant. I ask you all to support this budget, the only one which has been submitted, I reiterate, which reduces the precept for Beverley taxpayers and yet promises more with less. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, for that very comprehensive statement there. I've got Councillor Pinder.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got several comments to make. The first simply just goes to method. I sent Councillor Johnson an email, but it was quite late in the day because I've been looking at this. I think we can make our life easier for ourselves. I don't think we're calculating reserves correctly and the final outcome. And that rather than, there are 2 things I think that are a problem on the face of the document. And one is that we're trying to get bits of reserve and put them against expenditure. And I think the problem we have when that happens is there's a lack of clarity. Also, there are certain elements like the mayoral event and the food festival where they're blank, saying that, oh, we've got money set aside from previous years, which we know is not good practice to do that. I've said that before. What we should do is put in all the expenditure. If it was set for last year and it hasn't happened, but we're going to spend it this year, we should put it in the budget so we can see. It's about transparency. You can see what we're spending. Forget the reserves. Don't allocate any reserves against any expenditure. Put all the expenditure in so it's clear in each budget line what we do plan to spend, whether we'd set money aside for it before or not. Work that out, set against it income, and then look at our reserves and think, what do we want to use from the reserves? Because we all agree we need to reduce the reserves. We know we do. We know we do. So put in all the expenditure, and don't forget, I've suggested that we need to increase, there are several points on expenditure I'll come back to. When we've realised that final sum, then we look at reserves and go, okay, how much do we want to put from reserves against that figure we've reached that will then which will still have the same effect of bringing the precept down. It just allows for a more simple process and there's greater clarity. That's the first point I want to make. I think that's how we should do it, actually. The end result is probably the same. I've got one question on the election, and Matt, you'll have to help me here. How much do we normally set aside for elections per year? Is it
£4,000 a year. The reason it's 2 sets of 4 and a 2, making 10, is because council allocated for the forthcoming by-election, which may happen in May.
Yeah, May. Okay, so have we got enough money in there to cover the 2 years and the two? We've had 2 by-elections. Have we already paid for the other one? I thought there was a question as to whether.
I think Councillor Johnson may be able to comment on this as well. We've paid for one. We've not paid for the other because it hasn't happened, and the other election money is to build up for the next full round of local elections.
Okay, I just
again, sometimes it's quite imprecise because we won't know fully until after the election what we'll pay, and sometimes that's a year after the election, so it can be quite imprecise. But we have been able to cover it in the past in the way that's been done so far.
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy. If we've got enough in there, that was just my only question, was that we'd actually calculated, because, you know, Lord knows we have the money there. Okay, so there's that. Lynn, yes, sorry, Councillor.
I was just going to comment.
Johnson.
£10,000 in the reserve plot was £10,000 also on a budget line, and that's to recognise the 2 by-elections. So there's £10,000 ongoing plus 2,000 plus 2,000 for the by-elections. So that's why there's 14,000.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we hadn't let a by-election kind of slip through the cracks somewhere. Okay, that's fine. Now, as an observation on the budget overall, I mean, there's a lot to recommend in it. I do also would like to say, I do feel very much that the Swinemore end of the town has missed out historically. I also feel that the town has suffered. I feel the vision falls short in this budget. In this way, I think the Swinemore moves have been made to try and focus on Swinemore. I applaud Councillor Estelle Senior in that, Pete, you've moved to get planters and get flowers and planters on, you know, the other areas of the town that have generally been ignored before, and I think that's very welcome. But I do feel very much that people have really suffered in this town. And although I think it's great having aspirations to bringing visitors into the town, that can't be the only thing we do. That doesn't, visitors coming to the town don't benefit the residents in the wards that we represent. And I think there's been so much hardship under COVID. I would like to propose we actually establish a fund there for a COVID recovery fund, because we can do that to support people in the town. I do very much question why we took a £10,000 COVID grant when we were sitting on 800,000. Why we took a rate rebate, which I'm not even convinced we're entitled to, looking at the paperwork. I can't make head and tail of the paperwork. Why were we taking money from limited recovery funds when we're sitting on £800,000? I just think that's fundamentally wrong, and it makes us look bad. However, I think I would like to propose, I think, apart from the thing I mentioned before about money for Tom's Civic, and also have we set aside money for the awards ceremony that Tom proposed that we've agreed to? I think is the money in there for that. I would like to propose a 5-year, because this is going to have a serious effect on the town going forward. I would like us to put £25,000 in this budget for a COVID recovery fund, and I would like us to allocate 100,000 in reserves for 4 future years COVID recovery fund for the town. And that's the proposal of the Labour group. So I've got various comments. One is the way we calculate the budget, which just goes to method. The question of the election expenses, that's been dealt with. The mayoral expenses, the awards ceremony, just my comments on the grants, and then the Labour group's proposal for a COVID recovery fund to benefit the town. Thank you.
Right. A lot to digest there. So do I have a seconder for those proposals first and foremost, please? Councillor Hopkins, thank you. So I've got Councillor Hopkins next, please.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so the Labour groups had these proposals. Firstly, this question of, as we mentioned earlier under your announcements, that we'd like in the civic budget to ensure that there's something for there to be a civic dinner that you can conduct, hopefully during Pride. But also to speak to this idea of us having a COVID recovery fund. We obviously at this budget don't need to hammer out full details, but I think what we could do is have £25,000 of spending this year, and then, as Margaret said, as Councillor Pinder said, to have set aside £25,000 per year for 4 future years, with the anticipation that COVID is going to have a long-running effect. And the idea would be that we would then set out together as a council how exactly we would manage that fund, but that its purpose would be specifically to assist the town of Beverley in recovering from the effects of COVID going forward. And if we do that, I think it's important that we have it set aside as specifically a recovery fund for that purpose, not just part of the normal activity of the town council in terms of what it's just trying to achieve for the town and to promote the town and benefit the town normally. Because we know that there's going to probably be a serious economic shock as a result of the pandemic. The other thing I just wanted to speak to, as well as seconding that question of the recovery fund, is we've allocated 350,000 for a building. I think it would be prudent at this point to just increase that to 400,000, you know, from our reserves, to increase that to 400,000. Just we don't know exactly what the market is going to do. It's held up better than expected. But also bearing in mind previous prices that we kind of looked at, I think that would just be prudent in terms of making sure that if one of those buildings that Linda mentioned or another alternative does become available, we want to ensure we're actually able to take advantage of that and that we aren't kind of falling short there. And I just think in terms of being prudent, it would be best to just increase that 350,000 slightly in terms of how much we've put aside. Thank you.
Thank you. So another proposal there to increase the building pot. Do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Wildey. Okay. I've got several people to get through. Councillor Astel. You had your hand up earlier on. I had you on my list.
No.
Okay, moving on. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to speak to several of the comments that's been made by Councillor Pinder and Councillor Hopkins. First of all, you will see from this budget that we only have £57,449 left in reserves. And yet you're wanting to put £25,000 here and £100,000 there. I'd just like to know where it's going to come from. Secondly, you were invited to actually help with this budget. We had a meeting on December the 7th, and who came to that meeting? Councillor Willis came and made some valid suggestions. Councillor Hopkins did come and make some valid suggestions, but nobody actually put any kind of monies behind what they were suggesting. So I'm kind of rather frustrated by the fact that we spent such a lot of time trying to ensure that we do move Beverley forward, that we do create the opportunity for Beverley to come out of this dreadful COVID crisis. And indeed, some of that unallocated reserves could be allocated to this COVID recovery fund. But I would say that the East Riding of Yorkshire Council has actually spent millions of pounds supporting not only Beverley, but also other towns and villages, businesses and individuals in the East Riding. And I do wonder what you actually do want to spend the £25,000 COVID recovery fund on. I wish you'd have come to the meeting and explained what your thoughts were, and then that could have been incorporated, and perhaps we could have moved the money around somewhere. As this has to be in by Friday, I would suggest that I'm finding it a little difficult to actually start moving figures around now when these could have already have been done. And I would like to also make the point to Councillor Pinder that these figures have been put together as recommended by the JPAG, by Audit Yorkshire, and by recommendations from our internal auditor. So although you might like to actually refigure them in some way, that would not be possible. It would not meet with the JPAG and with Audit Yorkshire recommendations. And if you, I can't remember the actual number, I'm sure Deputy Town Clerk will help me with this, but Audit Yorkshire specifically said that they wanted us to allocate against specific projects at the time. So that's what we have done, which is why, but there is a little bit of money left.
Just to confirm, Mr. Chair, part of Audit Yorkshire, one of their recommendations was that rather than funding being reserves being set aside in 4 broad categories, that they be allocated to specific projects.
Thank you, which we have done. Thank you. Right. I'll move aside to Councillor Healy. I think you wanted to say something, Councillor.
No, sorry, I've got Councillor Gow on my list next.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
I would just like to say that I was taken aback that we claimed the £10,000 from central government. I know it was there to be taken, but I'd just like to echo the point that Councillor Pinder made, was sat on, prior to this budget being set, a huge surplus, and it doesn't sit well with me. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Gow. Councillor Healy.
Let me just take that point that Councillor Gow has raised regarding that grant. That was an operational decision taken by the clerk of the council in the interest of the people of Beverley. She was asked and told about it by the East Riding of Yorkshire Council, who made it very clear that such grants were available for town and parish councils in the light of the COVID pandemic. That money was spent on enabling the staff to work from home effectively by purchasing IT equipment. And that money is also being used to benefit the people of Beverley and went to fund the free school meals initiative. We do not expect the clerk, who's effectively a chief executive, to have to come and get a council decision on a decision to apply for a grant. The council were not meeting at the time. It was perfectly right and proper that she put the interests of this town council first and the people of Beverley first, and applied for that grant, which has now been used to good effect. On the other points, an awful lot of work has been put into this budget. Labour have contributed absolutely nothing to this budget. They have not thought in any way about the people of Beverley and how they could benefit. It's all very well coming to the town council meeting when we are discussing the budget and saying, oh, we'll put 100k here and 25k there and so on and so forth. You all know what the timetable is for budget planning. And you all know that this meeting is there to endorse the budget proposals. There is only one budget on the table, and Labour should have thought about this months ago if they wanted to have a meaningful input into it, and they haven't done that. So that makes it very difficult to start changing things around now. On the question of Swinemore, we agree totally that Swinemore should get more support. It's not just about Beverley Town Centre. And this council has done more than any other to do that. And I thank Councillor Estelle Senior as well for his work on that, his work on the planters, for example, his work on brightening it up, his work on the CCTV. I absolutely reject the suggestion that there is nothing in this for Swinemore. As Councillor Johnson says, we're all interested in how we can support Beverley with COVID recovery money. And if Labour have got any good suggestions on how we do that, we'd like to see them. As Councillor Johnson says, there are reserves and we can look at that in the future and putting reserves into it. So we're not closing the door to that in any way, shape or form. But you really have got to, come up with some more ideas other than let's do some COVID recovery. Because if that's the limit of your imagination, then it's not very good in my view and not very inspiring. So there is a budget on the table. Labour declined to contribute to it. I would like to move, Chair, that the budget as proposed by Councillor Johnson moves forward, and I move that we go to the vote. Thank you.
So are you seconding that budget proposal?
I'm seconding Councillor Johnson's budget proposal.
Right.
As unamended.
Okay. Councillor Healy, noted. Thank you. Councillor Pinder is on my list.
Yes. All I would like to say, I appreciate there was a brainstorming meeting. I would like to point out that my mother was extremely ill throughout December. And so I'm afraid I wasn't actually able to concentrate on very much else except looking after her and making sure that she actually recovered. So I apologise for my ability to engage with that during December, but unfortunately those events took me elsewhere. I would just put a reminder in about the only amendment will possibly be money for your dinner, but I'm sure we can find that money somewhere else rather than if you want to take the budget as it stands. I would also say that suggesting a COVID recovery fund, which we have suggested at a meeting before, is hardly a lack of imagination on the part of the people of Beverley.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pinder. Councillor Horsley.
I wish to support Councillor Healy's a proposal that the motion be now put.
Thank you, Councillor Horsley. Councillor Healy, your hand is raised. Are you wanting to make a point?
Sorry, Chair, it's from previously. I shall remove it.
Thank you. Right, so we have some amendments to the proposal of the budget. So we'll take these first. Yes, there is a proposal here. Can everybody mute themselves, please? There is a proposal here from Councillor Pinder, which is seconded by Councillor Hopkins, on mayoral expenses and awards ceremony and COVID recovery fund. All those in favour of those proposals, please now show. Okay, that is 3. Sorry, can you put your hands up again, please? Sorry for that. That's 3 in favour, and those against.
3, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, 3 in favour. All those against, please show. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against.
I have 8, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so 3 plus 8, that's 11, 2 abstentions. So that is not carried. And then there's another proposal from Councillor Hopkins to increase the building fund to £400,000. Those in favour of that proposal, please show. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 in favour. And there's
Sorry, Mr. Chair, could I just count that again? I think Councillor Pinder's hand came up.
Put your hands up clearly, everybody put your hands up clearly if you're in favour of that proposal. 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah,
5.
5, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, 5. And those against. Right, keep your hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Against. That makes 12. So am I reckoning we've got one abstention there? Okay, that is not carried. So the original proposal of the budget as presented. All those in favour, please show. Hands up clearly, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's same as you, Matt.
Confirm, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those against, please show. So that's 3. That's none. So that's 3 abstentions.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Right then. Moving on. Item 10, planning application. To consider submitting comments regarding the following application. Well,
sorry, Mr. Chair, there's still some items in 9.
Oh, sorry. Yes, there is. There is. I've got so many people on my list. It's sort of all intermingled, all of them. So apologies, everybody, for that. D, the tax base 21-22, to receive information from East Riding of Yorkshire Council confirming the tax base. And that's
Mr. Chair, we just need to present this to full council, Mr. Chair. Yeah. I don't think there's any comment required on it.
That's received. And item C, CCLA, to consider further potential investment with the CCLA fund. Deputy Town Clerk, you providing updates on that?
Yeah, the previous question from members, when they were considering it, was the amount of management fees related to the account. The CCLA have confirmed that in the pack that the management fee is 0.08%. There was some question from councillors whether it was 0.008. It's 0.08%, and that is taken off before interest. So we wouldn't see that. It's a little bit like paying your pension before you get your salary. So it's whether or not councillors wish to make a decision tonight regarding depositing any money with the CCLA, for example, moving some or all of one of the ring-fenced reserves, large ring-fenced reserves, or whether council would wish to move that to policy and finance to make a recommendation to full council for next time to finally approve it, to then move it on. It's up to council which way they want to move with that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Matt. I've got a couple of people with their hands up there. I'll just note you all. I've got you all there. I just want to make a comment on this myself. This is the deposit fund. So this isn't the property fund. That is a bit difficult. That's for a set period of time that you put your money into, and it's a bit more risky in a way. This is just the deposit fund. Acts a bit like a bank account. Can be withdrawn at any moment, and it's back in your bank account within minutes. CCLA suggest. You can access that at any point. But what they do is they split it over multiple institutions, so your risk is minimised, but you do get return off that. So that's just a comment from me to bear in mind with any investment. It's a very, very low risk investment. Obviously, there is a small amount of risk, as with any investment, including in high street banks. But it's essentially invested in multiple institutions, up to 30 they've got on the portfolio, and they invest it in all their institutions, so the risk is minimised. So that was just a point from me on that to consider, but there is other people with their hands up. So Councillor Johnson first, please.
Thank you. We could either move this to policy and finance, which we've got a meeting coming up very soon, or we could resolve, because we were advised by our auditors to move some money out of our current account, which currently stands at rather a lot. I won't quote the actual figure. We could actually move what we've got earmarked for our building fund and for contingency into a CCLA account if other councillors were happy to support that suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. So is that a proposal, Councillor Johnson? Are you wanting to see the view of the room?
To take the view of the room, we can either, as long as full council would be happy to give Policy and Finance the permission to go ahead with any discussions that we had at the next meeting. Otherwise, we could take this forward now.
Got Councillor Healy next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was going to move that it goes to policy. I mean, I think the question was, the reason it came here was because there was some doubt as to what the costs were about this investment, and further clarification was sought, correctly so. I think this paper does indicate that those costs are what we would expect. I personally think this is a matter for policy to formally move what the amount should be that's put in there. So I would suggest, particularly as the policy meeting is fairly soon, that this full council sort of agrees in principle with that an investment can be placed, and leave the policy committee to finalise the final amount.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. I've got. Sorry, was that a proposal to move it to cross to?
Yeah, a proposal to move to policy.
Right.
At the end of the day, it just seemed a more sensible way of doing it.
Yes. Yeah. So a seconder for that proposal, please. Councillor Astle, thank you. Right, so that's done. Councillor Hopkins.
There's actually just 2 points I want to make. Policy and Finance actually made a recommendation subject to knowing the fees and full council approving those fees of a smaller sum to be put in already. I'm afraid my I had my PDFs up open online, so I've lost the record of the exact sum. I don't know if the deputy clerk will be able to tell me, but my recollection is that it was something akin to 90,000, but I wouldn't want to swear to it without bringing the documents back up. But I believe we made that. What I think, therefore, is if I'm correct, we would therefore at this full council be able to approve that smaller sum. But if we wanted any larger sum, which I think would be appropriate, that we ask Policy and Finance to consider what would be appropriate in terms of a larger sum. Sorry, I'm going to try and find the exact.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Astle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in seconding Councillor Healy's suggestion or motion for this to be referred back to Policy and Finance. Yeah, as Chloe's just pointed out, riff and butting and when and why and not too sure. That's the reason why I've supported Councillor Healy proposal for it to be fed back to Policy and Finance for further discussion, so Matt, the deputy, can get facts and figures gathered together and present it along with the chair of Policy and Finance at next Policy and Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Astle. Councillor Pinder. Okay, right. Councillor Horsley.
Can I suggest that in order to make things absolutely clear, that we authorise policy and to invest a figure not exceeding a total of 400,000, and that it should go ahead with that once they have made the decision. We've already authorised it once they have looked at what makes best sense.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Wildey, thank you. Right then. Yeah, I mean, my personal view is that we should deposit as much as possible. It's very, very low.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I found that minute of it's useful from Policy and Finance on the 12th of October. The resolution was to recommend to full council that 350,000 is invested in the public sector deposit fund, subject to clarification being received by the town clerk on the administration and management fees which may be incurred.
Excellent. Thank you, Deputy Clerk. Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you so much, Deputy Clerk. I was trying to find that. My recollection on the actual figure was clearly far off there. But actually, in light of us checking that, it was actually then put to full council. And we did say subject to it. So I believe that actually means, and the Deputy Town Clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but that actually means that if we approve of these funding fees, we can actually, as a full council now, approve the 350,000, and anything additional Policy and Finance could consider, which I mean, I think would be appropriate for us to think about anything additional.
Yeah.
But in that case, I believe there's a resolution of council already that means that specifically that 350,000 does not actually need to return to Policy and Finance, because a recommendation subject to full council's knowledge of the administration fees has already been made.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I take the point, Councillor Hopkins. I tend to concur with that. Can I just say again? Can I just call the meeting to order, please? Can we just remember that this is a council meeting, and we are talking about large sums of money here. So I need complete concentration from all elected members, please. So I've lost my train of thought now. Right, so we have already approved the £350,000, just subject to us okaying the fees. So I've got a couple of proposals, one being Councillor Healy just referring it back to policy. Would you like to withdraw, or would you like to say that it can go on to the next policy meeting to discuss any future investments, any further investment, Councillor Healy?
I think we know that this council has approved it in principle.
Yes.
But I think it should probably go to policy next week, just to rubber stamp and so that policy can consider all implications for it. But I think we're right to say that a figure has been approved.
It's been a long, winding road. Personally speaking, it's been an extremely long, winding road. I think we've gone through all of. We've had 2 presentations from CCLA about this. My personal view is that we approve this tonight. It's already been approved. The £350,000 has been approved. We just simply wanted more information on the fees.
Yeah.
Got the more information on the fees. We're happy with that. Let's approve that move across investment to CCLA tonight, and it can go on to policy next week to talk about any more. Because personally, I'm completely in favour of putting the whole lot in and just having an operational pot in the bank account, to be perfectly honest. You know, circa £100,000, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everything else is with CCLA, personally.
Yeah.
Right. Is these points from Councillor Willis, Councillor Jack and Councillor Hopkins, are these new points? Yeah. Okay. Right. So Councillor Jack, please.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have absolute facts and figures in front of us. We haven't got the detail. All we're talking about is another week before it goes before policy and whatever. You say it's been a long and winding road. I can't see the difference another week makes. Let's do it in one fell swoop and do it at that meeting, get it sorted. But let's have it in black and white in front of us and know precisely what we're talking about.
Right. So, Councillor Willis.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you, Mayor, that I think let's agree to it. It's gone on, like you say, it's gone on and on and on. And if we'd already got a resolution, let's just pass it now. And if finance want to consider more money going in, that's a different issue. They can do that. But let's just say yes this tonight.
Okay.
Before I go.
Councillor Hopkins.
I'd actually just like to ask for clarity from the Deputy Clerk, whether or not the actual previous resolution of 350,000 subject to approving the fees actually means that it's binding on council. You know, because we have actually made this decision. Usually speaking, if a decision's been made, we shouldn't be revisiting the specifics of that decision, having made it. And my understanding of that resolution was that we made it subject to council's approval of the fees. So that a proposal tonight would be that the full council notes the administration fees and is satisfied with them, and therefore goes ahead with its previous decision to support 350,000 being deposited. Anything additional would be could be something that could be put on the policy and finance agenda, and I think that's welcome, and we're all happy to think about additional money. But my understanding of that resolution is that it's been made subject to approval of the fees. The actual sum of money, my understanding is that we have approved that sum of money if tonight we approve this proposal, that we're happy with the fees.
Would like to clarify that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm wrong, if I'm mistaken, Libby knows different. If Libby could jump in, but from my knowledge is that any resolution made has a 6-month rule, so it has to be rescinded within 6 months unless other evidence becomes available. That means that you wish to review the resolution. So it could be argued that because this information has come through, if council have further questions on the information that's come through from CCLA that might change the resolution that they made within 6 months, they can change it. But the resolution can't just be gotten rid of without it being officially rescinded, which takes quite a long. There's a process of that regarding written request for it, etc. So with the fact that there is more information now than was available previously, I think council would be able to not follow that resolution if they so wished, but there's nothing to stop it following it either, because the information that they requested is now available.
Right. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, we seem to be making a big issue of this. My understanding was that we didn't have sufficient information to make the decision and we were going to go back to CCLA. We've now got the information to make the decision. I believe that policy should make that decision. It's a lot of money. The Policy and Finance Committee should have the say on whether we spend a lot of money in putting it into our reserves. As Duncan says, it's a week away. Why have we spent the last 20 minutes discussing this? A decision wasn't made then and there. It was made, we asked for more information. We've now got it. In my opinion, we should bang it back to Policy and Finance, who can make the decision next week, and then it's done. And let's move on. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Healy. Johnson. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I've had my hand up for quite a while, but
yes.
I would like to, I was going to say exactly the same thing that Councillor Healy has just said. Let's ping it back to Policy and Finance. Policy and Finance can actually produce the costings, now we have them available, and the projections for different amounts of money. It's only a week. That just seems to me to be eminently sensible.
Okay.
I support Councillor Healy's suggestion.
Might I, so in the spirit of cooperation and working together, can I propose a compromise then, that Policy and Finance have the ability to transfer whatever funds, so what you know, the maximum amount of funds that we've got, policy and finance have that ability to approve that. I'm just thinking, if policy and finance want to move more money, then it's going to have to come back to full council again. So tonight, can we say that policy and finance have the ability to move that and approve that, you know, before the fact? Because otherwise I'm just going around in circles. And, you know, Councillor Johnson, Chair of Policy and Finance.
So that was what I asked initially, that we had the opportunity that if it was to go to Policy and Finance, which I recommend it does, that Policy and Finance have got the permission, the authority from this full council to deposit the amount of money that they think is reasonable. Councillor Horsley suggested that that was no more than £400,000, which is more than the 350,000 which was suggested initially. So that seems to me to be a sensible compromise. I think I can see Councillor Hopkins kind of nodding on that.
That is it for the discussion. I just need to refer back to the clerks in terms of the proposals, because there's been a lot of proposals bounded about here, and I just want to see if people can withdraw and we can just have one proposal to vote on, which is the last one from Linda, and seconded by myself, that policy and finance have, you know, the ability to spend, to invest any amount of money that the council has got at its disposal. So, Libby, Matt, who can we just have a reminder of the proposals and just who's moved them and see if we can get them withdrawn?
There was one from Councillor Healy to agree the investment to be placed and policy and finance to finalise the amount, and that was seconded by Councillor P. Estelle.
Okay, is that withdrawn, Councillor Healy?
Yeah, I'm happy to go with Councillor Johnson's recommendation that we give them a maximum and 400k. So it's effectively the Councillor Horsley proposal. Happy with that.
What's the next proposal? It's Councillor Horsley to make things clear. Authorise policy and finance not exceeding £400,000 and go ahead once made a decision. And that was seconded by Councillor Wildey.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's the proposal initially basically made by Councillor Johnson then. And is there anything else? No, I think that was it, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to
apart from the last one, which was Councillor Johnson, policy and finance having delegated ability to transfer the funds, and seconded by yourself, but that doesn't include the Councillor Horsley's 400,000. So it just depends which one you want to go.
I think that's Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, it does include Councillor Horsley's. I specifically mentioned the 400.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Right. So we've got the one proposal of 400,000 delegated responsibility to policy and finance to make that decision. All those in favour, please show. And that's 1, 2, yes, that's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Boynton.
Mr. Chair, just before we move on from item 9, finances, just to double check that councillors are happy with the precept as well, just for the minutes. They've approved the budget, and councillors are happy with the precept as it's going to the East Riding as well.
Haven't we voted on that with the budget though? That's all part of the same document.
That's what I just want clarification on, that you are happy with that just aspect as well.
That's it's all part of the same document. The budget and the precept demand, that was all voted on as one in that.
The precept is £272,000 894. That is the precept.
Yes.
As part of the budget.
Okay. Right. Item 10, planning application. To consider submitting comments regarding the following application. It's the erection of a petrol filling station and associated convenience store, 2 drive-through units and 6 industrial units, and 171 car parking spaces with landscaping associated with that. This was called into full council by Councillor Pete Astell. I will go to him first. I've got a couple of people with hands up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as you'll have seen in the papers that have come with your agenda pack, it's all quite clearly set out. There's even a link to the East Ridings portal where you can see more in detail the planning application. It's a big planning application, too big for that area, I believe, as do quite a few more people. In fact, I've just received an email at tea time tonight objecting to it, as I have received many over this last weekend. It's an erection of a petrol filling station, an associated convenience store, 2 drive-throughs units, 6 industrial units, and associated infrastructure, and 171 car parking spaces and landscaping. I think 171 car parking spaces on that bit of land would take up the whole of that land, because, as you know, where I work, just down the road, there's only 172 car parking spaces on there, and a large supermarket store. That gives you some idea of the car parking spaces. It's right on the main junction, well, roundabout, Hullbridge Road, Swimore Lane roundabout, as you all know, and you can appreciate at the best of times the access down that lane, down the Swimore Lane, and up onto Grange Road, and backing up towards the level crossings of Hullbridge Road is hectic under the normal circumstances. No, we aren't under normal circumstances at the moment, Mr. Mayor, but under normal circumstances at peak times, Swimore Lane is horrendous, to say the least. Notwithstanding that, most importantly, next door to this is the community hospital, which again, that is well used. I'm pleased to say, not used enough, some might say, but well, it is well used. And again, there's quite a lot of traffic, and of course, Swimore Lane is one of the, if not the, access for the Yorkshire Ambulance Services getting to and from Hull. So my motion is on this one that Beverley Town Council notes with concern the planning application number 20/03720/STPLF. This council believes that this development will impact adversely with yet further overdevelopment of Beverley, and in particular, there are already highway issues on Swimore Lane with considerable congestion at the busy Swimore Hullbridge roundabout, and the complexly figured Swimore Groville and Home Church roundabout. The proposed site also lies outside of the development limit for Beverley. So to summarise, Mr. Mayor, this council believes that this development is unsuitable for the location. This council resolves to call this application in to the relevant planning committee to ensure a full and proper debate, and this council further resolves recommend refusal for this planning application. I so move that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Astell. Do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Johnson. And I've got comments from Councillor Pinder first, please.
Yes, can I just suggest that does anybody oppose this? Because I think it's a very well drafted motion. I would be astonished if anyone opposes this. I mean, I defer if anyone still wants to kind of jump in on that. I feel it's very clear. We've all read it. The motion's very clear. We've just been all around the houses with the CCLA. Can we just go to a vote on this unless anybody really has something urgent to say or wants to oppose it?
Thank you, Councillor Pinder. Yes, I mean, I concur. It's very, very well drafted. And I do feel that we can just go to a vote on this. Obviously, my job as mayor, if somebody raises their hand, I have the responsibility to call them to the floor. But if people want to put their hands down, then that is a responsibility for the each individual elected member. So I would like to go to a vote, and all the hands are down, which is marvellous. So let's just go to a vote on this. All those in favour of the refusal of the motion that is placed, all those show, and that's unanimous. Excellent.
Chair, it's not unanimous. I've abstained on the account of the fact that
sorry, there's one abstention.
I'm a member of the Eastern Area Planning Committee.
Yes,
so
sorry.
I don't participate in any votes on planning issues here.
Yes, I do apologise. That's 12 votes for and 1 abstention. Okay.
Mr. Chair, for the record, it's 11 votes for and 1 abstention because Councillor Willis has left.
Yes. Sorry, apologies. Late into the evening. Right. Item 11, public spaces protection orders. For the Town Council to resolve potential comments regarding revisions to the public spaces protection orders for Beverley. You've all received comments of this, papers associated to this, and I go to Councillor Astel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say that I welcome this public.
Sorry, Councillor Astel, can I just interrupt you there? Can I call the meeting to order, please? As I said before, I've had to interrupt this several times this evening. Councillor Wildy, if you're not paying attention to the meeting, can you get rid of your video, please? Because it's very distracting to those of us who are paying attention. Councillor Astel.
Yeah. Yeah, I do thank the East Riding for this public spaces protection order and the updated version. As you'll have seen if you've all read it, it's just basically reiterating with a bit more clout in certain areas the public spaces, i.e. There's certain areas of Beverley which are causing antisocial behaviour, and so they've put more beef on the bones there with this open spaces protection order. What I would like to state, Mr. Mayor, is quite simply this: I've had complaints, and I think the ward members for St Mary's, I haven't discussed this with them, will have had Sylvester Mews, which is adjacent to the bus station. It's a public alleyway with these gates on it, and quite honestly, I would like to see those gates being locked up. They were locked, they're under lock and key at night. The residents who live up above the shops there, it's their only access. But we won't go into detail what they're having to walk through and what they're finding down there. But on a night, it's not very nice for a female going home after a long hard day's work to be confronted by whoever or whatever. So I would just like that in our response to this, that we put a caveat in there to say that we would like the Sylvester Mews gates being the subject of being able to be relocked again. For some bizarre and unknown reason, they've remained unlocked for this last 4 or 5 years at least. But I mean, I don't see any reason why these gates shouldn't be locked. But that is mentioned in this order, Sylvester Mews and the bus station area. That's what I'd just like to add, Mr. Mayor, on this one. It is for consultation, is this order, and we have to reply. We have to respond. Matt, I think by this Friday, is it? Yeah.
Okay, so proposal there from Councillor Astel. So it's simply put. Do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Johnson. Any additional comments on that? Councillor Hopkins. Need to unmute yourself, please, Councillor Hopkins.
Should be.
There we go.
Did it work that time?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. It said I was on mute at my end. I was just saying, Mr. Mayor, I object in principle to the public spaces protection order, and I've campaigned against it, so I'm going to be abstaining on this one.
Okay, thank you for your comment there, Councillor Hopkins. So I'll put this to a yes, Councillor Wildey.
When I read that, I got the impression it was to do with, they mentioned things about people jumping off bridges, and I got the impression it was a referral to all the youngsters congregated at the bridge at Ticton in the summer. Am I wrong in that?
Yes, that is the reflection. It is to stop. It is to make it an offence for people.
I have a problem with that because I used to go there just about every day because I go there to walk the dogs, and I have a problem with it because I'm not quite sure what these kids.
Would you just be able to sit down, Councillor Wiley, because I'm getting a bit of motion sickness.
I'm not quite sure what these kids are supposed to do if they don't entertain themselves in ways such as that, which don't actually cost money. I used to walk past them every day, and the only problem I had with them was that obviously there was a substantial amount of them. There was a hell of a lot of them. And also, the only other problem I had was the amount of litter they dropped. The fact that they were entertaining themselves by jumping into the water, I didn't have a problem with.
Just the littering.
It's just the littering. In fact, there was one time where I picked up a load of the litter that they dropped. So it's that more than anything else. I mean, they weren't actually being a nuisance. I mean, obviously it's right next to the pub, and the people in the pub don't like it because it doesn't create. The pub's quite exclusive now, and it detracts.
This is just relating to Beverley, though, the Beck area of Beverley that we're voting on this evening.
Yeah, but I can't support it because I don't agree with banning them from entertaining themselves when they've got no money to do anything else. So I'll probably be abstaining or voting against it.
Okay, that's fair enough, Councillor Wiley. Thank you for that.
But Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Astel.
Just to come back on that, the reason why these this open spaces order is being put into place is not because they're against young people jumping into the water and what have you. They're endangering their own lives of these young people. And the amount of attention that has been created down there on Beverley Beck by the Humberside Police has been far better put to use finding proper criminals, not going after some youths jumping off the bridge. And you know, I shudder to think what could happen if a young person jumped over the bridge and impaled themselves on something that they can't see underwater. So on that basis, I fully support what East Riding and Humberside Police are trying to achieve here. there is the swimming baths at leisure centre to swim in if the young people want to go there. But you know, in this day and age, swimming in the Beverley Beck, I don't think it's very good. But this open spaces protection order is more about Beverley, other than just the Beverley Beck. If those of you that's taken the liberty to read it, Mr. Mayor, thanking you.
Thank you, Councillor Astel. Deputy Town Clerk, please.
Are members happy for myself to liaise with Councillor Peter Estelle to arrange the wording and comments regarding Sylvester Court? If you're happy with that, I can liaise with the councillor to submit those comments. And secondly, just to reiterate what Councillor Estelle was saying, in the actual report, the activities that they're trying to deal with aren't just kids hanging around in an area where they're allowed to hang around and socialise. It's throwing things, including animals, into the water, tampering with the equipment for life-saving around water, and actually jumping from the bridge. So it isn't a wholesale stopping people there in the form of the revisions.
Thank you for the clarification, Deputy Town Clerk. Councillor Gow.
Sorry, I think the point's passed, but I mean, certainly the no unauthorised swimming, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to differentiate from jumping off a bridge to swimming in the back. And I know there's been some issues with the defibrillators that are dotted around from groups of youths messing with such things. It's a difficult balance to make, because in the summer, with your friends, but I appreciate entirely what Councillor Peter Estelle says regarding into the dark and not knowing what's under the water. So who are the arbiters of, you know, who makes the decision on the public safety?
Thank you, Councillor Gow. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason that I personally campaigned against, and I'm still part of a campaign against the public spaces protection order, is that it criminalises activities that are otherwise not criminal in these public spaces. And I think we can all agree that certain activities aren't desirable, but that doesn't necessarily mean they should be criminalised. And in my view, and this is why I, you know, wouldn't support sending supportive comments on this, in my view, there are better ways to deal with issues of antisocial behaviour or of dangerous behaviour than criminalising people. And that's, you know, that's my position on, you know, we can all say we're very worried about people deciding to jump into the water and what might be there. Personally, I think it would be better to try and do sort of a public information campaign for them there than to criminalise them for doing it. You know, that's essentially the position on why I think the actual orders in themselves are generally are bad, you know, they sort of encroach upon people's rights in public spaces and create criminalisation in a way that I consider to be entirely unnecessary.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hopkins. We have less than a minute left of this meeting before we need to suspend standing orders, so I'd like to get it wrapped up, please. All those in favour of the proposal from Councillor Astel in the comments made in supporting the public protection order, please show. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favour, and those against, please show. That is 3. So 7 and 3, and there's 11 of us on. So that's
yeah, one abstention, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Right, it's 8:30. Calling the meeting to a close. Thank you very much to all. But we do have another meeting, so don't go anywhere just yet. Although I would like to request a quick 1-minute comfort break, if possible, and then we will reconvene. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
So members are aware it will stay live until we've approved it to be closed.
we'll just wait for everybody to get back, and then we'll make a start again. Just to let everybody know, we're still live on YouTube. We'll just leave it another minute just to see if anybody else comes back, and then we'll make a start. And we're all back in the room. I don't know if Councillor Wiley will be joining us, but the video was off before anyway, so we'll make a start. So, extraordinary meeting of the Town Council to receive apologies for absence. Any apologies received, Deputy Town Clerk?
Councillor Willis.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. To record declarations of interest by any member of the council in respect of the agenda items listed below. Members declaring interest should identify the agenda item and type of interest being declared. None to declare, thank you. And to note dispensations given to any member of the council in respect of the agenda items listed below. And none to note, thank you. Right, item 3, to consider the exclusion of the public from the meeting on the grounds that confidential information in relation to the proposal of bestowing the title of Honorary Freeman shall be disclosed to Public Bodies Admissions of Meetings Act 1960. So the motion is that the public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that confidential information in relation to the proposal of bestowing of the title of Honorary Freeman shall be disclosed. Public Bodies Admissions of Meetings Act 1960. I move from the chair. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Johnson. And those in favour, please show. And that's unanimous.